Hello and welcome. In January 2026, Google made an announcement that quietly sent an earthquake through the world of e-commerce, and that's exactly why you're here in this course. Google have introduced something called the Universal Commerce Protocol, or UCP. And while that name sounds technical, the reality is simple and perhaps inevitable. The way that customers find and buy your products has fundamentally and permanently changed as of this month right now. For the last 20 years, we've all played the same game, and we've all played that game of getting to the top of Google. But now, that era is over. Today, your customers are not searching. They are delegating, and they're asking an AI agent like Google's Gemini or ChatGPT to find exactly what they're looking for. And when that agent is on the hunt, they're not browsing 10 different websites. Instead, they're analyzing product data and presenting a single confident recommendation. If your product data is incomplete, unstructured, or unhelpful, you are invisible. You simply do not exist. This course is about how to exist in this brand new world. But it's not just another technical SEO course. You won't find that here. My focus and our unique advantage, in my opinion, is content strategy. All of this comes down to your content strategy. So I'm not going to teach you in this course to install a plugin and walk away. I'm going to teach you how to think, write, and structure your product content so that AI agents see you as the most authoritative, trustworthy, and helpful source in your category. We're going to learn how to write for machines so that humans can buy, and we're going to do that all under 2 hours because you need to optimize your website right now. This is an urgent change, and if you are continuing to implement this over time, you will lose out. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And by the end of this course, you're going to be ahead of 99.9% of your competitors who haven't found this course, who don't know what UCP is, and haven't got a clue where to begin. So congratulations, you're already a first mover. So let's take a little look at what we're doing here and to understand where we're going. To get started, I want to add in a little bit of context here. So we need to be crystal clear about what shift is happening, and you'll be able to see that on the screen here. We're talking about the shift here from human readable to agent readable commerce. And for the last 20 or so years, we've really lived in the human-driven world, and it is a world of browsing. So if a customer has a need, they're going to go to Google, type in a keyword, and they're going to get a list of 10 blue links. They're going to click a few, browse a few category pages, maybe explore some of those Google shopping links at the top, and maybe they'll buy. And it's a world that's been read by affiliate links, Google shopping protocols, loads of different things. And our job ultimately, when we're talking about our content strategy, when we're talking about SEO, was always to win the click and then persuade that browsing human with beautiful pictures and compelling marketing copy. But now our new reality is something that none of us really are prepared for, I don't think. And this is the reality of agent-driven commerce. It is a world of delegation. The customer has the same need, but instead of searching, they're giving the entire task to an AI agent. The agent is the one that does the research. It's not browsing in the same way. It's not easily distracted by beautiful product pictures. Instead, the agent takes in and analyzes structured data from stores that have opted into the Universal Commerce Protocol. Then the agent will make a decision and present a recommendation, or even a whole cart full of things back to the human. The human is no longer in the driver's seat, and the agent is. This is the single most important concept that we're going to grasp and that we've got to grasp before we continue on in this course. It's your customer now is no longer a human. I always used to say that we had two audiences, right? We were writing for our human audience and our robot audience. And in the past, I always used to think while we had our two audiences, the human audience came first. And actually, they were the decision at the end of the day. They were making that decision of whether or not to bring out their credit card. But now our robot audience comes first. Agents do not get persuaded in the same way that customers do. They're not bothered about fancy pictures. They're not bothered about fancy web copy and marketing slogans and lovely literary devices. No, they're convinced by clear, structured, and complete data that answers the question that they're looking for, that really touches all of the USPs that your customer is looking for and is searching for in the prompts. And it means that our entire content strategy needs to shift. We need to change from persuasion to information. And in the next lesson, we're going to talk about the protocol that makes all of this possible. Okay, so welcome back. In the last lesson, we talked about the fundamental shift that's happening in e-commerce. And to be honest, I might have got a little bit carried away. It's such an exciting move at the moment from Google, and it's so new that we're still figuring things out as they come. But it's really important for us to take a step back if we're going to implement this into our strategy. Let's take a step back. Let's really understand what we're talking about here and what we're dealing with. And let's understand what I mean by UCP and what UCP actually is. So here's a question that probably popped into your head when you were choosing this course and coming over here. How do all of these different AI agents, whether you're talking about Google, OpenAI, Perplexity, how do they actually talk to our stores? How do they know what's in your inventory? How does ChatGPT understand your pricing? How does Perplexity compare your content or your product, to a competitor's? So the answer is UCP. That is the Universal Commerce Protocol. And in this lesson, we're going to take a look at what that means in a way that actually makes sense. So we see that the UCP is the SMT of commerce. That's what it says here on the slide. Now, if you're not a tech person, that might sound a little bit like jargon, but stay with me because this analogy is going to be key to understanding everything. So let me take you right back to the 1990s. Email was becoming a thing, right? But it was a mess. If you used Gmail, well, Google Mail back then, you could only email other Gmail users. If your friend used Outlook, you couldn't send them a message. If your colleague used Yahoo Mail, whatever, you couldn't do it. It was completely fragmented, and every email service was its own little walled garden. And then someone said, this is ridiculous. If we're going to make email happen, we're going to need a standard, a universal standard. And this is SMT, the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. It's just a set of rules that says, here's how email works, here's what information needs to be included, here's how to send it, and here's how to receive it. And then, of course, what happened? Suddenly, Gmail could talk to Outlook, Outlook could talk to Yahoo, blah, 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 blah. Everything connected. We had one standard, and we were able then to choose the kind of provider that we wanted to, and email really took off as a result. So UCP does the same for e-commerce. One standard protocol replaces thousands of custom integrations. So UCP is an open standard, and it's spearheaded by Google, that creates a single, predictable way for AI agents to request and understand product information from your store. So let's think about what UCP defines. It says, here's what data we need. Here's how it should be structured. Here's what in stock means. Here's how price is formatted. Here's how to handle shipping options. Here's how to complete a checkout, all of those things. It is a shared language, a universal handshake. Before UCP, and we're literally talking just a few months ago, every AI company had to build custom integrations for every shopping platform. So Google had to build one integration for Shopify, another for WooCommerce, another for BigCommerce, another for custom platforms, blah, 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 blah. And OpenAI had to do the same thing. Perplexity had to do the same thing, which is obviously a huge duplication of waste and time, and it's chaos. Hundreds of custom integrations, thousands of bugs, a nightmare to maintain, essentially. And what that meant for store owners is that you guys had to wait, and you just had to hope that your platform was on the priority list. If you used a custom built platform, well, you had to just have your fingers crossed, and maybe you were already thinking about a way of overcoming that. And you had to hope, essentially, that the AI company cared enough about you to support you. But USP changes all of this. And this is good news. This is a huge opportunity because with one implementation of UCP on your store, you become visible to every major AI agent on the market. So not just Google, not just OpenAI, every single one that adopts the standard. And so that means you do this work once, you optimize your content once, and you become visible everywhere. So let me give you like a concrete example and we can break it down. Imagine that you run a store that sells outdoor gear. Right now, if a customer goes to Google and searches for best waterproof hiking boots, for example, they might see your product in the Google shopping results. But if that same customer goes to ChatGPT and asks the same question, you might be invisible. You might have already noticed this on some of those SEO analytic platforms like Ahrefs and SEMrush, which are trying to give you data on how your site becomes visible. And it's broken down by platform. But now UCP changes all of that because Gemini can actually access your product data directly. So can Perplexity, so can Gemini, so can ChatGPT, sorry. So any new AI agent that launches your product, it can be recommended somewhere if you've got it set up to do so. And also, another great opportunity, what I'm really excited about, you're not competing with Google anymore. You're competing with every store that has optimized their content for UCP. And right now, that's hardly anyone. In fact, that might be nobody. It's a level playing field. It's a completely new thing. And that is a huge, huge opportunity for you. The store that understands content strategy, the store that is optimized and that is working on this. You guys right now who are listening to me create the first course on this, you have the opportunity, you have the advantage, and that is hugely exciting. So let's round this up. UCP is the protocol, it's the standard, and it's the infrastructure that makes all of this possible. And it is going to be the absolute minimum. If you imagine SMTP for email, how that is now the standard that we just don't even question anymore, UCP will become that too. UCP doesn't work by itself. It's important to notice that. It's just the plumbing, and the real power comes from what you put into it. It comes from the content strategy that you have behind it. And that's what we're going to talk about in this next lesson. All right, so now we know that UCP is the universal protocol that allows AI agents to access your store's data. But here's the next question. What actually happens when an agent accesses your store, and how does it help a customer buy? Well, the answer is, and one of those annoying things like always, it depends. There are actually 3 distinct models for how agents will facilitate purchase, and understanding these 3 models is crucial because they each involve a different level of data quality, and they offer different levels of value. So understanding these 3 different ways, these 3 different models, will help us tailor our content to these models. So let's take a look at them. Here, the first one is our direct checkout. And this is where shoppers on Google AI mode or Gemini check out directly without leaving the platform using Google Pay or PayPal. So this is the holy grail of the UCP, the holy grail. So imagine this scenario, and we're going to go back to that example that we used in the last lesson. The customer's in ChatGPT. They say, I need a new pair of waterproof hiking boots for a trip to Scotland. I have a budget of $200 and I wear a size 10. I'm a woman. The agent is then going to analyze that request, and it searches across multiple stores using UCP. It finds 3 options that match the criteria, and it compares them based on your product data. So your price, materials, reviews, warranty, shipping time, and everything like that. Then it says to the customer, I represent the Trailbreaker Pro from Adventure Co. It is $189. It's highly rated, and it ships to your location in 3 days ahead of your flight to Scotland, which is in 5 days. Should I add it to your cart and check it out for you? And the customer says yes, and the agent right there in the chat interface assembles a cart, processes the payment, and completes the entire transaction. The customer never leaves ChatGPT, never sees the other options. They just go off the recommendation from ChatGPT. They never even visit your website. They never see anything. Isn't that crazy? This is direct checkout, and it is going to be incredibly powerful because the entire friction is gone. What used to be an hour long shopping research trip on the internet, what used to be to take hours of comparing, trying to find the best price, now just takes seconds. It's going to be huge for your customers, and it's very exciting because the agent is going to handle everything. All of that friction, entering their email again, entering their postcode again, entering their telephone number, creating an account, activating the email, all of that stuff completely gone. But here's the catch in this. You're not going to rank there right now. And it's going to take a bit of work for you to get there. This only works when your data is absolutely perfect. Your pricing has to be accurate to the cent. Your inventory has to be real time. Your shipping information has to be precise. Your product attributes, they all have to be complete and very, very specific. There's zero room for error in this, because if an agent assembles a cart and then discovers that the item is out of stock, or the price is wrong, or that shipping isn't available, or that shipping is actually 10 days and not the 3 days that you promised on your website, then they lose trust, and then you lose the sale. That will fall through, and probably that will impact your ranking in the future. If that agent cannot complete that, then they were unlikely to look at you for another future opportunity. So direct checkout is the highest level of trust, and it's the highest level of data quality required. The second one is this business agent. This is a feature that Google is rolling out right now, and it's really, really interesting. So imagine that instead of your customer asking a generic AI agent, they're asking your agent, your branded AI-powered agent that lives right on the Google search results page. So when someone searches for best hiking boots, they see a little icon for your store and they can click to chat with your agent. So unlike the direct checkout where this is happening in in ChatGPT, business agent is happening on the SERPs, and it's happening with your data and something that's controlled by you. Your agent is trained on your website content, your product data, and your brand voice, all of your expertise, etc., etc. When a customer asks a question, what's the difference between hiking boot A and hiking boot B, your agent is able to give your answer in your voice with your perspective. So hugely important for brand control. You're not relying on generic AI to represent your product and interpret your data. Instead, you're controlling the narrative, and you have a little bit more control about what kind of content can go into that agent to help them provide the best answer to your customers. And when your customer is ready to buy, the agent can facilitate that transaction too. So it's like having a knowledgeable sales associate in the Google search results. This isn't too crazy. It's not too different to what we already have and the functionality that we already have. And finally, we've got our referral model. And I think, in my opinion, this is going to be the most common, especially at first. But that doesn't mean that you can ignore direct checkout. That's coming. They've been clear about it. It is on the way. It's something that needs to be part of your content strategy for this year. But I think conversational attributes will be much more common. So here's how this works. A customer goes to ChatGPT or Perplexity or Google Gemini, whatever. They ask that question: best waterproof hiking boot, my trip to Scotland, under $200. Agent then does its research. So it accesses product data from multiple stores via UCP, and then it compares the options. It's going to analyze the reviews, use all of that data, etc., and then it makes the recommendation. So far, so similar to direct checkout. But then it says something like, based on your budget and needs, I'm going to recommend this. Here's a link to the product page. The customer clicks the link, they land on your product page. They're not cold, they're not browsing, but they still do visit your website. And the agent's already done that research, but they've sent that person with a high intent of converting. They're ready to buy, but at this time now they're able to check out on your website, so they're still able to see all of those benefits, all of those great things like your product images, etc. So here's what's important from this. These three models, direct checkout, business agent, and referral, they're not mutually exclusive. And a single store, in my opinion, what we're going to see is a single store is going to operate in all three of these models simultaneously. They all have one thing in common. Whatever the agent is looking for, they're going to use your data, your product content to provide those recommendations. So the success of this model completely depends on the quality and the completeness of your product content. So if your data is inaccurate, they might recommend you, but the customer is going to get disappointed when they land on your site and then it's not the correct thing that you're looking for. If your data is poorly structured, the agent can't even take a look at it. The information doesn't match. And that's why the rest of this course is going to be so important for you, because we're going to look at how we are structuring this data to make sure that our content is legible in these three ways that agents will shop. So remember that these three models are coming. Some of them are already here. Direct checkout is the dream. It's going to be high trust, high conversion, but it requires perfect data. And it's going to be competitive and it's going to be difficult, especially for small businesses to get to that level. However, that doesn't mean don't target it. That's where the real money is going to be. However, business agent is your control, your voice, your narrative, and referral is the foundation. We're already starting to see this. And if you've been dabbling with an AEO content strategy in the last year or so, you'll already be familiar with referrals and that kind of traffic there. So in the next module, we're going to start building that foundation. We're going to look at the next 5 layers. We're going to look at the 5 layers, of content that agents read. So I'll see you in that lesson. Congratulations, you made it through module 1. Now we're in module 2, and this is where we're going to get really into the heart of the course. And so everything we've talked about so far really sets us up. And all of it comes down to this, and that is understanding what agents actually read when they access your product data. Here's the thing, and I don't need to tell you this, AI agents, they're not humans and they don't think like humans. They don't get inspired by a beautiful product photo. They don't get moved by a brand story. They're not really that bothered about clever marketing copy. As much as I hate to say that, I am a creative copywriter at heart. But an AI isn't bothered about that. Instead, they're looking at reading data and they love it to be structured, organized, hierarchical data. Now, not all data is created equal. Some data is critical, some of it is nice to have, some of it, though, is the difference between being recommended and being invisible. So on the screen right now, you can see the 5 layers of content that agents read. And essentially, I want you to think of it like a pyramid. Each layer builds on the one that comes below it. And here's the critical part. If you fail at the bottom layer, the agents are never even going to look at the layer above it, right? You're invisible before you even get a chance to shine in the search results. So let's walk through each layer from the bottom to the top. So layer 1 is the technical health of this aspect. It's your product titles. So here, they must be clear and descriptive, and agents are going to use this to categorize. They want, at this point here, we really want to be looking at things like, is your product feed valid? Do you have a price? Is the item in stock? Anything like this that is the base really of the pyramid, and agents are going to use this to categorize here. It doesn't really matter. Think of this as, doesn't matter how beautiful the house is if you don't have those, if you don't have the foundations correctly. Layer 2 here is the core attributes. So these are your color, size, material, weight, blah, blah. Is it a shirt? Is it a shoe? What's the GTIN? What's the MPN? What are the dimensions? These are non-negotiables for visibility, and they're the bare minimum for an agent to even consider your product in a comparison. If you're missing these core, if you're missing these core attributes, the agent cannot categorize your product, can't compare it to competitors. Now, layer 3, here we have our product descriptions. We have our descriptive attributes, and this is where we start to add that richness and nuance. What's the product made of? What color is it? What size is it? What material composition? This here is where a brand voice comes in. Agents extract snippets here for synthesis. So let's take a look at an example here so that we really understand this, right? A customer asks an agent for a large blue cotton t-shirt. It filters by size, it filters by blue, and it filters by material. But so your product is only going to show up if it's got those descriptive attributes filled in. But if you don't specify that it's from, it's cotton, 100% cotton or whatever, the agent might skip it because it really is looking for those cotton things specifically. If you don't specify the size, or if your sizes are different, they're not in large, for example, they may be in, they may be in women's sizes or in men's sizes individually, can't match that customer request. So making sure that you use that language to describe it in that product description helps you to add attributes and add extra flesh to your description that might be missed by that structured data coming from before. Layer 4 here, Q&A and our FAQs, these are our conversational attributes. And I have to tell you, this is where things are getting interesting. So we have here Q&A, FAQs, conversational attributes. This is like the top of the pyramid. This is where our attributes answer the why questions. Why would someone buy this? What problem does it solve? Who's it best for? Who's the use case? What's the emotional appeal? So instead of just saying cotton t-shirt, let's take that example. You're saying, it's perfect for outdoor adventures, ideal for sensitive skin, great for layering, all of these kinds of things. So 2 stores might have exactly the same product, but one store's filled in these conversational attributes. One store has this Q&A and FAQ information, and then the agent is able to say, I know about your trip to Scotland. This product is perfect for that outdoor adventure that you're about to go on. So it recommends the first store. Without those conversational attributes, we might have that structured data, but that additional level of flesh isn't there. There's another aspect to this that I haven't really included on here, but it's about trust and authority. So in this part, it might come from external aspects, which is why I kind of didn't really include it in this slide. But it doesn't, because we're talking about structured data here, that doesn't mean that those things that we'd see in traditional SEO go away. Our reviews, backlinks, the amount of credibility that your site offers, still really important. And high trust is that key thing that I think is going to lead to direct checkouts. If an agent has high confidence in your data and in your brand, and that you say what you know what you're going to do, you deliver what you say you will, and you've not let them down in the past, that is going to be helpful to pull through to those direct checkouts. It's going to facilitate that purchase right there and then in that chat. But if your trust is low, the agent might refer the customer to your site directly for them to make the decision, or even skip you completely. And trust is built over time, and it's built through accurate data, but it's also built through all of those traditional trust signals that we see in SEO, the backlinking, the reviews, the listicles, all of that type of stuff. Now, here's what I want you to understand before we move on. Most stores are failing at layers 1 and 2. Certainly most stores that I've seen and that I've worked with, they've got broken feeds, they're missing core attributes, and they're invisible before they even have a chance to compete with the content that they have right now. So the stores that are going to win, those are the ones that understand layers 3, 4, 5, and that trust and authority level. Those are going to really dominate. They're going to craft compelling conversational attributes. They're going to fill in every descriptive attribute. They're going to build trust through accurate data and positive reviews, backlinking over and over. So here's the truth, really. You can have the best conversational attributes in the world, but if you're missing those core things, if you're missing product titles, core attributes, and product descriptions, you're never going to build that conversational attribute is never going to see the light of day in an AI agentic search. So you remember, you've got to build from the bottom up, and that's the only way that we're going to see traffic to our ecom store via the UCP. Okay, so we've talked about the 5 layers of content, and now really quickly I want to dive into the single biggest reason why products become invisible, and that is because their data is incomplete. And if there's something the one thing that I want you to take away from this lesson is that product data completeness is non-negotiable, and agents don't guess, they skip. So completeness matters a lot more than cleverness. So here's the thing about humans. We're really forgiving. We're flexible. And if you see a customer shopping for a waterproof jacket and you see that beautiful photo, even if the description is really vague, you'll still click. Maybe you'll even find that lengthy product descriptions don't work. You want beautiful, beautiful product photos, and that's been the advice for a long time. But an AI agent is not forgiving in the same way. Machines follow rules and they follow logic, and that's what they're expecting to see here. On the screen, you see a couple of things. We've got our checklist, and we've also got a little bit of an idea here of kind of a flowchart or a little diagram to the left of the screen there. So let's imagine that we are going through, if we take a look to the left of the screen, we're looking at the agent logic flow. We've got our waterproof boot. This is our query, and it's less than £2. The attribute here that ChatGPT, imagine if it's kind of scanning things, seeing that the attribute is waterproof, the attribute weight is missing, therefore the attribute price is skipped. At what point did this break down? Well, we've got those two pieces of technology. There's two pieces of attributes that ChatGPT is looking for, the waterproof boot, and then the attribute there that is the match that it is indeed waterproof. That attribute there for weight, however, is missing. So it doesn't stay on there for much longer, and it's just going to skip that next attribute price directly. It doesn't care. This is an invisible product, and that data is no longer relevant. It's not important. You might think here, well, I don't know all of this information, or I don't have all of these assets, or I'm struggling to think how I could put this information into my CMS. That's where this content strategy is really important. And that's because you have to fill out these things. Otherwise, you'll find that your brand becomes invisible here. This is the opposite of traditional SEO. On your websites, humans fill in the gaps with context. They might not necessarily need to see, the height of the ankle support, because on the model, they'll be able to see that themselves. Maybe they don't know exactly what color it is, if it's a fluorescent yellow or a muted yellow, because they can see that in the product description. So just yellow would be enough. But here in this new world of e-commerce in UCP, details are important. The details are so, so important. This brings me to another problem that I see e-commerce businesses make quite often. They like to get clever, and often you'll see businesses give attributes unique names to describe their products. So an example of that might be, for a waterproof boot, they might not use the word large or like ankle support. They might use a term like lower leg protector. But if that's the case, if this is people aren't Googling for that. They're not looking at ChatGPT for those terms. And so even though you might have that attribute there, is it clearly labeled? Is it labeled in a way that is understandable to the GPT, to the AI agent? AI support, yes. Lower leg protector or beast mode walkable or something like this? No, because even though for you that might mean the same thing, that's your branding and your tone of voice, that doesn't mean the same thing for an AI agent. And while we would have always been able to rely on humans and their creativity, their understanding to contextualize that data, in this case they would not be able to do that. So this is the opposite of traditional SEO in that way. It's got some things that are similar, but it's the opposite of many of those e-commerce principles that we've come to rely on over the last 20 years or so. And it really comes down to putting in those data, using those attributes when we can, filling it out. And then there's a little checklist there for you. Are you including dimensions and weight, colors, sizes, care instructions, materials and origin, fit and compatibility, and certifications, if any? I've put that together just now as I've been preparing this course. There's probably a lot more for your industry, but make sure that every single product has this, and you're off to a great start in creating a complete content strategy that will perform in UCP. So if you're a content marketer like me, you probably skipped right to this lesson. For good reason, I understand why. The way that we're about to write product descriptions is changing. And I want you to hear this clearly. For the last 20 or so years, way before I became a content marketer, way before I started my career, there's been a process of writing product descriptions, and there's been a way of writing them in a certain way. We've been told to be evocative, persuasive, use marketing flair and emotional language. And right now, we actually need to unlearn that habit a little bit, because agents, they don't read prose, they parse data. So on the screen, you will have seen here a direct comparison between two ways of writing a product description. On the left, we've got our old way, human-centric, and on the right, we've got the UCP way, which I've labeled as agent readable. So let's start with the old way. This is how most stores write descriptions today. It's a paragraph of marketing copy, essentially, right? Our premium hiking boots are crafted, meticulous attention to detail. You can pull out aspects of this that sound lovely and that really nice, but they're vague adjectives in the main way. We've got a buried value prop, a linear narrative structure, but it's hard for agents to extract facts. Things like, we believe that great boots should last a lifetime. For human, that means durable, long lasting. For an AI agent, what does that really mean? In this next UCP way, it's a little bit more utilitarian. And I've highlighted in bold here some of the things that we can pull out. Waterproof hiking boots, rocky terrain, reinforced ankle support, breathable mesh lining, weighs 1.8 pounds per boot, true to size, rated for temperatures, recommended for these things. So now we've front loaded those key attributes and we've got key specific data points that are pulled out in there. We've got clear use cases, rocky terrain, day hikes, when it's recommended for, technical trails. And this is easy for agents to synthesize. In that first one, if I had a specific requirement, if I was going to, hiking in the Alps, would this be the product? If you were just an agent looking at these two product descriptions and you knew my criteria, Alp hiking, lightweight and waterproof, do I have that information in that first one? If I was a human and I was looking at both of these things, I'd probably see them as equals, but it's very, very clear from here which one would perform best in AI search. So this is not just a different mindset, it's not a different writing style, sorry, it's a real fundamental shift in the way that we think about our product, because we're not trying to convince someone to buy a product. By the time that that the AI agent has provided this description to that person, actually they've already been pretty convinced. We know they're no longer needing to go through that sales funnel. At this stage, they're actually ready to buy already. I know what some of you are thinking here. You're thinking, well, I still need to sell my product. I still need to be persuasive. And you're right, you absolutely do. But it's important for you to still consider this new way. If you're rewriting your product descriptions, maybe in this right now, in this sort of initial phase, we might need to write them in the both ways, right? We need to front load those key attributes, but also present that flowery language to human people if it's human visitors, if they find our website in that way. We're going to need to unlearn some old habits though, and really we're going to consider that structured data is going to be king. I've got a couple of questions that people have asked me in the last couple of months as I've been on product calls. Won't my product descriptions look boring? Well, your product data will look like a spec sheet, but that's kind of the point. Your website photos and your reviews will still be beautiful and persuasive, and it's really important to consider that. Do I need to remove my current descriptions? Maybe. If you don't have any, you certainly need to write them. But if you need to add structured data, it should be alongside your current descriptions. The agent will read your structured data, humans will still read your marketing copy. What if I don't know how to structure my data? That's what this course is for. I really hope that you're taking notes and feedback so that you can go to that on your site. And then finally, can I use the same description for all products? This is such a common question that I get. No, absolutely not. You cannot. Each product needs its own specific description with its own specific data. That's a vital point. However, you can use templates to speed up the process. And with a great copywriter or content writer, you can use AI and templates that do that to make sure that your structured data fits in exactly the same format, but also reduces the time and reduces the cost from writing your product descriptions. Okay, so we've covered the foundation and we've talked about data completeness, we've talked about writing descriptions, and we've talked about basic attributes like material, weight, and color. But here's the question: what if all of your competitors have the basic data in order? What if everyone has the material, the size, the color, the waterproof rating? How do you stand out and how do you win? The answer is you win with the next layer of data, and you win with conversational attributes. These are the attributes that go beyond the basic specs, and they're the attributes that answer subjective human questions that users are asking when they're prompting and engaging with their LLMs. They go beyond what the product is and explain why somebody should buy it. But, and this is critical, they do it in a structured, data-driven way. On the screen, you can see 5 of the most powerful new conversational attributes, and I want you to walk through each one because these are the attributes that will make the difference in your content between being recommended and being invisible. So let's start up here. Let's start with the use cases and scenarios. So this is the most important conversational attribute, and here's why. Customers don't search for products, they search for solutions. If you remember in the last video that we watched, we were talking about the example product description, and it gave use cases of when those hiking boots would be used, what situation they would be best, recommended for technical trails, recommended for so-and-so. So a customer doesn't just go to ChatGPT and say, find me a jacket. They say, I live at the beach and I get really cold and this is the situation for me. Find me a jacket that is suitable. And in that case, they're not searching for product, they're searching for the solution to a specific problem. Now, your products might be perfect for all of those scenarios that a person might come up with. They might be great for windy beaches and summer days and rainy Alp hikes. They might be great for all of those things. But if you are just listing features, then you're not giving the full picture. So if this product is for daily commuting, it's product for formal events, it's for travel in hot climates, outdoor adventures. These are the use cases that people are actually searching for. When a customer is asking for a jacket for a windy beach, the agent's looking for products that are tagged with related semantic terms. So not necessarily those exact words, windy beach, because that would be crazy. You would be listing huge product descriptions, but they might be, they might be looking for things like cold outdoor weather, harsh terrain, harsh climate, temperatures up to this level, those kinds of things where people that might apply for that term windy beach. So we want to look at the semantic field around those individual attributes. The second thing here we have in this red, that our most important things, is that emotional appeal and value. So here we're really capturing the why, the confidence and technical terrain. That was what we had in our previous example of our hiking boots. And agents weave this narrative into their recommendation rationale. And that's really important for us to understand the feeling or the style that a product evokes. So it seems a little bit like marketing here, and you might be thinking, well, this isn't so different from what we already do. But these really aren't marketing claims, they're style categories, and they matter to customers. So if a customer goes to ChatGPT and says, find me a minimalist desk lamp, the agent is now looking for products tagged with minimalist. If you filled in the emotional appeal attributes and set it to minimalist, your product shows up. If you haven't, it doesn't. A customer says vintage inspired coffee table, we're looking for vintage, etc. So it's a way of turning a subjective style into a data point, and it's incredibly powerful. Then we've got things here like in our blue column on the left there, we've got answers to common questions, compatible accessories, substitutes and alternatives. So here is where we're starting to build out more of that semantic prompting. If the ChatGPT is, perhaps we're looking for, I'm going for my trip to Scotland, not only do I need hiking boots, but I also need a great fleece. Well, that's a compatible accessory, something that we could bundle together that work perfectly in those different circumstances and situations. We've got answers to common questions. Maybe people, maybe someone's looking for a hiking boot with ankle support that actually is ankle support and not just a little bit higher. Those kinds of hiking boots that you see, they don't stop me rolling my ankle. I'm looking for a very specific type. I'm looking for specific type of laces, or I'm looking for the weight of them. Do they really pack? Can I take them in my hand luggage? This type of stuff. These are common questions that might not necessarily be answerable with use cases and scenarios and that immediate layer of data. Substitutes and alternatives. Let's be honest about our products here. Are they too expensive? Try this model. Agents value this transparency and build trust with your brand. This is important because agents and customers, they'll have a conversation. So they'll be looking for multiple types of product, and they will be putting these categories on. Too expensive, not in grey. I want, something more feminine, something more minimalist. Well, if by grouping these things together, we can help the agent guide the client and help the agent to discover the best product for them. Now, this here is the strategic advantage. These attributes are rolling out now, and so early adopters who populate them will dominate agent recommendations, while competitors remain silent. So this is your homework. Look at your top 10 products, and for each one, ask yourself, what are the primary use cases? What problems does it solve? What's the emotional appeal and value? What feeling or style does it evoke? What's compatible with? What other products pair with this? Fill out these attributes, do it just offline, and then do it for, put them into your attribute, to the relevant attributes. I would do this offline, do it with your team, really engage with your products and consider them from different perspectives. If you do have customers that you are able to tap up for information, bring them in for this consultation. That's going to be so key in identifying the correct conversational attributes to align with your products. Really important. Do this for your top 10 products first. Do it now, this week. Go do it right now for your top 10 products. Get visible right now. And then over the next year or so, roll it out across your lesser products as well. Okay, in the next module, we're going to be shifting gears. So we've come to the end of this module 2. we're going to be talking about the technical implementation a little bit. This is still primarily a content course. So we're going to be looking at that technical implementation, and we're going to actually take a look at how this might look on the back end. So let's go. So welcome to Module 3. And we've already talked a lot about the what and the why. We've talked about what agents read. We've talked about why data completeness matters. And we've talked about the conversational attributes that make you recommendable. Now we're going to touch on the how. How does this all actually work? Like, how does this come together? What does it look like on the back end? How does an agent actually communicate with your store? Here's the good news. You don't need to be a developer to understand this. And this course really is aimed for people who are involved in content marketing or marketing teams rather than expert developers. But knowing the basic mechanics will make you a much smarter content strategist, e-commerce strategist. So I will cover some of these technical aspects here. It'll help you ask your developers what to do, which is such an important thing. And I often find myself in hairy situations when I don't know what my developers are doing. And it'll help me to understand a little bit about what's possible and what's not. So on the screen here, we've got our 4 aspects of really like how UCP works. So the first thing here we have is our agent discovery. This is where our agent discovers your store and asks what capabilities do you support. Most of the time, this kind of comes from an initial prompt from the user. So it starts with the user. They go to ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google Gemini, whatever. They ask that agent for something specific. This is the human request, conversational and specific, and it triggers this agent discovery. And so this, in this case here, the agent discovers your store in response to, an initial query by that. And the next thing here is our capability negotiation. And it's quite important here. So while this agent is sort of reaching out and looking for information, in the second step here, this is where this handshake happens. Your store essentially receives this query and responds. So your store then checks your product catalog, looks for items that match the attributes based on the user query. And because you've done all of that hard work of structuring your content, it's going to be easy to find the answer to that. Your store will be able to respond quickly and say, yes, I have a product that matches that initial user query. So the capability negotiation is your store filtering through the products that you have and offering an answer to respond to that agent. So your store says, I have a match, and then they send it back. Here is where that product query comes in. They might ask for specific requirements. So maybe it's not just saying here, yes, I have boots available. Now this product query is where we get a little bit more information, and it looks again through those capabilities and through those attributes to find the product matching that specific criteria. For example, waterproof boots under $200. If in that initial capability negotiation, your store replied, yes, I have boots. All of your boots are for formal events. Of course, in this product query, you'd drop off and you wouldn't be provided as an answer. And then finally, you're given as the agent recommendation. So we get to this transaction, and the agent receives the data from your store, receives other data from, a couple of other stores, compares, and it analyzes the structured data to provide the user with the best option. That then is what is provided as a recommendation, and it's there that this transaction happens. So ideally, what we want is to happen is that agent looks at the data that we have and says, yes, your store is the best answer to this response. So that's it, really. That's the handshake. That's how UCP works. So let me just point out what's really important here. Do you notice what's missing from this entire conversation? The way that your website looks and that banner images, your marketing slogan, your logo, all of things like that. So really, this really emphasizes that need for structured data above all. one of the other things that we haven't spoken about here, but it's that this handshake relies on a response from your store. So while that agent discovery in the number one, they're asking you, you then need to respond with your information. So the speed of that response matters. And that's why we spent so much time talking about data completion and data attributes, all of this type of stuff. This here is where it hits the road. Is your store capable of responding quickly and understanding this data? If your data's muddled, that response is going to be slow. If your store is tardy and it's messy and the data is a mess anyway, it's going to be slow. So it's really important that we consider the mechanics of this handshake, to understand that actually it's down to that whether or not it's just a split second here, whether or not our store will be recommended. The foundation is the handshake, everything else just follows. Okay, so the question is now, how do we actually make all of this happen in the real world? And for those of you on Shopify, I've got some good news. The process is surprisingly straightforward. Why? Well, because Shopify is actually a launch partner for UCP. And so Google and Shopify work together to make this as easy as possible. Great news, you guys have the first mover advantage. So if you're here, take advantage of that. On the screen, you'll see that there's three core components for making UCP work on Shopify. These are the three things that you need to understand. And if you're not the one that's doing the technical work, these are the three things that you need to ask your developer about. And let me walk you through each one. So the first one is the channel, the Google and YouTube app. So this is the central nervous system of your UCP setup. And this is the app that creates the connection between your product catalog and Google's Merchant Center. So it's kind of like a pipe. On one end of the pipe is your Shopify store, and the other end is Google's system. Google and the YouTube app are the pipe that connects them, and it's what allows data to flow from your store to Google. So here's what's important. This app is not new. You probably already have it installed, and it's the same app that powers Google Shopping. But with UCP, this app does a lot more. And instead, it doesn't just send basic product information, it sends all that structured data that we were chatting about. The first step is to make sure that you've got that app installed. Obviously, if you don't have that, then you're invisible. But then the second step is to make sure that your products are syncing without errors. So go now, check the app, make sure it's installed, make sure it's active, and make sure that there's no sync errors. The next part is the data. So we're going to have to map our UCP attributes to the meta fields within Shopify. Do not rely on the description box only. Instead, create custom meta fields for material care, use case, and compatibility, and then map these to your product feed. So this answers the question of where do we put all of these new attributes that we've just been talking about. And this is in the Shopify meta fields. And they're Shopify's way of letting you add custom structured data fields to your products. So think of them a little bit like custom columns in a spreadsheet. By default, Shopify already has a few. You probably already got them complete, but you can now add these own columns. And for example, you could add a waterproof rating column if waterproof attributes are important to you. Adding more of these attributes as you can obviously increases the amount of structured data you have on your site and improves the amount of valuable information that agent can extract from your site when it does initiate that handshake. This is really the heart of this content strategy. And so instead of stuffing the keywords like the bad old days of old, instead of stuffing those keywords into the description paragraphs here, don't rely on that. You're filling out specific machine readable fields. And then the third box, we are structuring our product descriptions. We're rewriting those main product descriptions to be modular, just like we did in that initial lesson that we spoke about, where we looked at the old and the new ways of writing product descriptions. We're going to rewrite those main descriptions to be modular, use bullet points. We want to use structured data and lists even within there, bring those attributes to the front and add in any emotional use cases or styles in that way. So once you've done this work for all of these things. The good news is really that you can then template it, and then you can use it for all of your other products. So once you've set up those meta fields in Shopify, for example, it's just a case of getting them filled out for all of your other products as well. If you're on Shopify, this is your homework really. So check that you've got your Google and YouTube apps installed and active, and that your products are syncing. Make a list of all of the meta fields that you need. You should have done that already in the previous lesson, where we looked at and we brought in our customers to see how our content, to see what kind of words that we could use to describe our product. Now we're going to use that to make a list of the meta fields, work with a developer to create them, start filling them in for your top 10 products, and then we're ready to go. And so once you've done that, you're ready for the next step, and that is to scale and apply this to all of your other products. Okay, so we've covered Shopify, but I know that not everyone's on Shopify, and some of you are probably on WooCommerce, BigCommerce, or you have a custom or an API integration. The good news is that from an overview of a technical standpoint, the principles really remain exactly the same. The only thing is that the changes to the tools and the interface. So on the screen, you can see the integration strategy for the 3 different platforms there. We're just going to quickly, high-level overview for each one. So WooCommerce, that's the plugin for WordPress. It's open source, flexible, used by millions of stores. Many of my clients are on WooCommerce. And the strategy for WooCommerce is very similar to Shopify, but it's plugin based instead of app based. So here's what you need to do. You need to create an official or you'll want to use an official or high quality plugin like Google Listings and Ads. And that's the equivalent of Shopify's Google and YouTube app. So that's what creates the connection between your WooCommerce store and Google's Merchant Center. Second, you'll use WooCommerce product attributes feature to add your structured data. That's the equivalent of Shopify's meta fields, and you'll create attributes for material, weight, use cases, emotional appeal, and so on. Everything that you think is relevant, everything that you'd used in that previous lesson to understand the meta information about your products. That's where you would add them in here. The key difference here, though, is that in WooCommerce, you don't just put this data in a hidden meta field. And instead, you can actually display it on your product page, which is really cool. So you can show the material attribute, the weight attribute, the dimensions, etc. And it's really good for both customers and agents. So there's a little advantage here. Customers can see clear specifications. Agents can parse clear specifications. The important thing is, don't just bury the details in the description box. This is a common error that comes up throughout whatever platform you're using. Don't just add loads into the description. You're going to have to use this metadata. You're going to have to use specific attributes for each piece of data, and then the plugin will sync them to Google. BigCommerce, fully hosted e-commerce platform, and it's designed for mid-market enterprise stores. And BigCommerce has a lot of this functionality built in. So if you're thinking about structured data and these attributes, probably nothing new to you. You have a native channel manager that can connect directly to Google. You don't need to install a separate app if you're on BigCommerce, which is great. The functionality is already there. And the strategic equivalent of Shopify's meta field is BigCommerce's custom fields. And this is where you'd add your conversational attributes like use case, emotional appeal, and compatibility, so on. Once you've created those custom fields and then you fill them in, you go to Channel Manager settings and then you map them to Google's product categories. Just like in Shopify, you're creating a translation key, and that tells Google what your data means. The process is slightly different from Shopify, but the strategy is really identical. And really, for all of them, you're moving this important product details out of unstructured description paragraphs and into structured named data fields. If you're working on a custom or a headless setup, then the process is a little bit different, but actually you might find that it'll be a bit more powerful. So in this scenario, your team will be using the content API for shopping directly. So you're not going to go through an app, you're sending direct data directly to Google's API. And this is where your content strategy really becomes critical, though. Your job is to define the exact data structure that your developers will send to the API. So this is usually in a format called JSON LD, which is a structured data format that machines can understand. In this world, your product structured data is the entire interface. So it's a little bit more complex. You definitely will need a developer for this. What you design on paper is what the agent will see, and there's no UI layer, so there's no app to hide behind. That does mean that you're not going to make that mistake of just keyword stuffing your product description box, your text box, but it does mean you need to be very, very intentional about what data you're sending, defining every field, and that's going to be quite a bit of work there, and you will need to be bringing in someone technical. This won't just be a content strategy plan for you on that custom or headless CMS, but here's the upside: you do have complete control of that, and you certainly can use that to your advantage. You're not limited really by a plugin or an app like some of those other platforms are. So that's it. That's the strategy. The tools are a little bit different, but really the principle is identical. I know you might be thinking, well, my platform here isn't mentioned, and to be honest, I haven't given you an implementation strategy. That's because this course is for content marketers and sales, maybe small to medium enterprise owners. This isn't a place where we're going to be looking at that technical setup, and we're not developers in this course, but we are content marketers, we're content strategists. However, what you would need to do is look at your platform's documentation, find out how it connects to Google, find out if there's an app or a plugin, and then find out what structured data fields are available, and then how to map that data onto your Google's categories. So it's a pretty straightforward process, but really we're thinking about actually executing that. You probably will need a developer there. Okay, so here's your homework. You're installing this and we already know that we're working on those first 10 products. By this time now, we should have a really good, clear understanding of the metadata that we want. Now it's time to identify your platform. We'll start to work with your developer to create or find the equivalent of meta fields and custom fields. Fill them out, make a list of what you need, and then fill them out, and then work to set up the connection and create your fields. So really, my aim is for you by the end of this course to have 10 products live. So take the time now to go and do that. This is the end of this technical module. In the next module, we're going to be looking at moving from an implementation to what this means for your content strategy in itself. We're going to look at how you can audit your content and how you can create a 30-day plan to get your products agent ready. I'll see you there. So welcome to our final module, and if you're still with me, well done, congratulations, we've only got a few more lessons to get through. And in this last module, this is where we're turning theory into action, and it's where we move from understanding, the context of theory behind this, into actually, doing. Before you can build, you need to know where your weaknesses are. And before you can optimize, you need to know what's broken. So this is what this lesson is about. We're doing a content audit. And I know that if you guys are content marketers, salespeople, a content audit will probably be something that you are quite used to, but maybe not in this unique way of thinking about it. So in this content audit, what we're looking at is we're trying to see the store through an agent's eyes, whereas usually we might be looking at how to see our store through our potential customer. In this case, we're pretending to be robots rather than our ideal ICP. So over on the left there, you can see my core concept for this lesson, which is our blind test. It's very simple. If you remove all product photos, is there enough data left to make a confident purchase decision? This is my blind test that I want you to use right now. Head over to your website, choose one of your random products, and ask yourself this question. Maybe pause this lesson right now just to answer that, jot down some notes. Okay, if you can't see any of these images, All you have left is the text, the title, the description, blah, blah. Is there enough information in this text alone for this customer to make a confident purchase? Can they tell what that product is made of, how big it is, what it's for, who it's for, the sizes that it's on offer, its weight, dimensions, what they should buy it for instead of a competitor's product? If the answer is yes, then great, you passed the blind test. If the answer is no, then you fail. This is exactly how an AI agent sees your store, and agents are effectively blind, so they can't see those high-res photos. If you fail the blind test, you will be invisible to agents. But if you pass it, that's where your visibility comes in. Your brand story, those photos and everything like that, they don't matter. And this is why this test is so powerful, because it forces you to think like an agent and actually identify what matters in our agentic e-commerce strategy. So now that you understand the concept, but how do you actually audit your content systematically? So I've put together 3 levels that I'm going to use in my clients and that I do use in my clients right now to audit these content, find gaps in their content and fill them. So level 1, technical health. Do we have all of our GTIN, MPNs, our schema valid, crawl errors, the basic visibility requirement? Tick, 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 tick. Okay, yes, you've passed level 1. These aren't subjective questions. There should not be any doubt about this. It's literally just tick yes or X no. It's a binary audit and it's the easiest to do. If you fail at level 1, okay, you know exactly what you're looking for. This is where you need to start. Now we come to our attribute density. And this is where we're starting to really think about agentic e-commerce, because at this time we're asking how many specific attributes does each product have? And does each product have those specific attributes defined? Is there scope for us to add more? We're looking for a high number here to pass of specific named attributes. Our target, if you look at the bottom, our target is more than 8 specific attributes per product. Why 8? Well, that's the threshold where agents start to see a product as complete and trustworthy. Below 8, the agent potentially could see gaps. Now, full transparency here, this is an educated guess, this number of 8. I believe that this is the case based on my extensive experience of product research. We might see other numbers come out in the future, in which case I would update this course. But for now, I'm using a general rule of thumb of 8. So level 2 is making sure that you have enough specific attributes to paint a complete picture of your product. And then finally, level 3 is where we're adding that contextual relevance. And if you think back to the beginning of this course, this is where we introduce this element of contextual attributes. And this is where, of conversational attributes, sorry. And this is where we start to think, have you defined what its use case is, the emotional appeal, the compatibility? We don't want marketing fluff here. We don't want to use AI to do this, because I think it's going to be very important that we end up with terms that customers are actually seeking. Remember to think about that semantic field of terms. So that here is where we're starting to think about this contextual relevance. If we've got number 1, we can go on to level 2. Only when we have all 8 target attributes can we go on to level 3. So that's the framework: technical, attribute density, and then contextual relevance. Hopefully it's helpful for you. In the next lesson, we're going to look at how we can actually fix these, what that might look like over a 30-day process. Let's go. Alrighty then, so you've done your audit, you've identified the gaps, and you know what's missing. And now the question is, how do I go about fixing this? What am I going to do? I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, this is overwhelming. I have hundreds of products and I don't have time to optimize them all. Where do I even start? And no, at this time, I'm not going to plug my services or tell you that you need to hire a content writer. I really believe that you can do this by yourself. This is exactly what I'm going to address in this lesson here. We're going to break down this plan, I've put together for you a 30-day optimization sprint, and this is your action plan. This is where you go from being invisible, where you are right now, to agent ready in 1 month. Caveat, it's not going to be easy. I don't think you can just do it alone. Maybe if you do have hundreds of products, it's going to be a team effort. But hopefully this will give you a strategic approach to reaching, agent ready that you can follow, so you don't feel too overwhelmed and you feel ready to get going. So on the screen right now, you can see four week by week breakdown for the next 4 weeks. Week 1, we're going to start with the technical foundation. This is where we're going to focus on infrastructure. It's not sexy work, this, but it's going to be really important. And that's that first level of our content order, if you remember from last lesson. Don't try to optimize everything at once. Just optimize your top products, the ones that generate the most revenue, and those are the ones that are the most important to your business. So that's what we need to focus on here. First, audit your feed for critical errors on your top products. Use the framework from the last lesson, run them through my 3-level content audit, identify any technical errors, missing GTINs, fix them, incorrect prices, etc. These are the foundations. So if anything is wrong here, then everything else is going to fall apart. Ensure that our UCP channel is installed and running. If you're on Shopify, make sure it's the Google and YouTube app. WooCommerce, make sure it's the plugin. BigCommerce, make sure that your channel manager is set up. Make sure that your products are syncing without errors. Bring in a technical person here if you need to ensure that that is working. By the end of week 1, you should have a clean technical foundation with no critical errors, no missing data, and the certainty that the channel is working. Now, week 2, time to work on our core catalog. We're shifting from infrastructure here to content, and the goal here is high impact. So we're going to take the top 20% best-selling SKUs, and then we are going to rewrite titles for clarity and structure and populate those core attributes. At this stage, you might want to hold those workshops. I've kind of alluded to this a little bit throughout the course. Really finding those attributes is key. My golden rule is 8. If you can add 10, 12, 24, brilliant. Here it's going to be identifying those attributes that are that are worth populating, that apply across the board of SKUs, and that give valuable information there. So have a workshop here and then optimize your core catalog around that. Don't seek perfection in this level. We're only in week 2. Remember, you can add attributes later, but making sure that we've got a solid foundation here is our main key. Now, we really want to get our small high value segment first before we progress on to week 3. But by week 3, we're starting to think about adding that next layer of data. Again, this is still for our top 20% of best-selling products. Here, we're going to be adding the additional conversational attributes there. So use cases and compatibility, proactive FAQ answers, define substitutes for your items. Here, we're looking at deep content. We're creating more content. We can use AI content to do this. I'm not against using LLMs to write this stuff. But remember, if we do so, make sure to check that is the case, to check that it's true. Make sure that you homogenize that information as you input those data sets into your CMS. And do include some of your unique aspects of that. Use the LLMs as a starting base. I'm not against using AI content in e-commerce. I think it's helpful, especially when we're creating content at scale. But make sure that we're adding in our USPs. Stick away from those generic marketing fluff that those products do create in general. Now we're on to week 4, which is our validation and scaling. So it's here where we test and we see if this is actually working. So here's what you do. First, go to Gemini, ChatGPT, ask it questions that you expect your products to be the answer for. So if you sell hiking boots, whatever, see if your products show up. Please note, they might not show up. This is because these kind of initial tests are quite challenging to get right. What might be recommended to you in your location and in your specific circumstance might not be recommended to another person. Try and use a new ChatGPT or a new Gemini account. Try to take this with a bit of a pinch of salt. But also, this is a helpful opportunity anyway, even if you don't show up, and you might not, even that functionality might not have been able to see through, where by the time that we're looking at in week 4, especially if you only just added that content in week 3, remember that if you don't show up, look at your competitors. What do they do? Are you doing similar things? This validation thing, I want to just take a look at this information. But actually, this testing is going to be a case of doing it over the next sort of 6 months to a year as people start to embed this AI search more into their everyday shopping habits, and they move around. So while I really want us to consider this in week 4, this isn't the be all and end all if we don't show up here. And I don't want you to scrap all the work that you've been doing. Keep testing, keep validating. If you don't get a positive result in week 4, keep at it. And then hopefully over the next sort of 3, 6, 9 months, you'll start to see that traffic change. Okay, so by the end of week 4, really, you should have a clean technical foundation, top 20% of products fully optimized, initial validation that it's working or the initial signs that it's working, and a plan to scale there as well. So I want to emphasize something a little bit important before I leave. This sprint model, it makes a huge task manageable, but it's, we're focusing on those initial products and we're wanting to get that ROI before you scale it. Most people try to optimize everything at once. They start from, alphabetically, and they get overwhelmed. They give up. They never see the results. They might get to that validation stage, not see initial results, leave it. Don't do that. Content is always about consistency, quality, doing something consistently over time. It really is. Content is like building wealth. Yeah, you could hit it big. You can go viral on a Bitcoin hit, or you can invest like Warren Buffett in the S&P 500 over time, and you'll see your wealth growing exponentially. We're an S&P 500 team here, right? We're looking at investing for the long term in our content consistently over time, and that's always the approach that I recommend. That's the approach that I'm recommending here. This is how you avoid overwhelm. Break it up into manageable chunks, but then keep at it. Stay consistent, and you will see changes. Okay, so in the next lesson, we're going to be talking a little bit about what that ROI might look like. But first, you need to do the sprint. I've been saying this a couple of times. Go and do that now. Go and optimize your content, and then the rest of the course will make a lot more sense. Okay, so we have completed our 30-day sprint. If you haven't yet, imagine that you have. We've now optimized our top 20%. And now the question is, how do I make sure that that work that I've done is actually paying off? What are the kind of ROIs? What's the success that I can look at? The old metrics that we used to love, keyword rankings, organic traffic, all of those are becoming less relevant. Now we need a new dashboard. So here are the 4 KPIs that I'm interested in. The first one is this agent share of voice. This is your new ranking metric. For the top 10 queries in your category, what percentage of the time does an agent recommend your product in its top 3 results? So if you sell hiking boots, top 10 hiking boot queries, how often does my product show up in the top 3? This is your visibility metric. Track it weekly. Now, it's important to add here, people are skeptical about this metric. I still think it's an important metric, and my clients are asking about it, so I'm including it in here. I think that people are right to be skeptical because LLMs and AI are so specific. They're really tailored to your results. It's unlikely that these prompt tracking tools can actually give you a realistic way of measuring that. It depends on a lot of nuance and subjectivity, the kind of questions that we ask. And so I'm seeing mixed results from this. For now, though, I don't have a better option, and I think many people don't. As time goes on, I'll update this course. As it is right now, I'm actually writing this just 2 days after Google made their initial announcement. So in the future, I expect to see more information from this. For now, this is the metric that we have. That's kind of true of all of these things. Of course, number 2, our second metric is our conversion rate, our trusty conversion rate. We love it. Keep a close eye on this. The only addition here to our conversion rate is what we'd like to see with our web average versus our agent average. And agent referred traffic, that traffic is our most valuable because it's pre-qualified and high intent. So I would want that to be significantly higher. If I was seeing that wasn't, I would be concerned. Third, average order value. I want to see agents bundling our products, and we've spoken a bit about that before, combining products, bringing them together. Here, our average order value should be higher if we're looking at that agent traffic. So we want to be tracking that average order value here. If your AOV is higher than your site average from agent referred traffic, it's a sign that our compatibility data is working. So that's what I want to be seeing here. And then number 4, our customer acquisition cost. So as we gain more organic visibility, our reliance on paid ads should decrease. This will lower our CAC over time. This is the ultimate ROI of SEO, as you know. You're getting qualified traffic for free. It's been pointed to you. Brilliant. Just like all SEO, there's high intent traffic that's coming to you for free or for the cost of the content work. Important to consider for each of these what it might show if we're not seeing what we expect. So agent share of voice, if we're not seeing that, then we might be not optimizing. We might not have our basic technical data right. We might not have good attributes right. Conversion rate, if we're not seeing that, again, it might be a disconnect between our product data and our landing page. Our landing page might be performing better because it's got those additional marketing things that we can use to convert. So our products, photos, our banners, any other marketing sort of like techniques that we have. If we then don't replicate, or if we don't really spend as much time on improving the structured product content behind that data, we might see those conversion rates fluctuate. Average order value, if we don't see our average order value go up, there's a problem with our bundling, our compatibility data. And if our CAC doesn't go up, then I'm thinking that there would be a problem with our general positioning and structured data behind those things. Okay, so before we wrap up our course, one of the final questions that you might have now is, how do I take what I learned and apply it beyond those initial 20% of my best performing SKUs? How do I apply this across my site? What might the next 90 days look like? So after our initial 30 days, what comes next? We've already done this here, and I've sort of put this out for you, a phased roadmap for you over the next 90 days. When we're looking at that first aspect there, our first 30 days, we're building the foundation. We've already done this. This is our order of those top 20 SKUs. We're going to fix those critical gaps, enable the UCP channel, and just test that and just make sure that everything's working. Once we've got this foundation here, it's going to be easy for us to progress onto our next thing, which is expansion. So now here, we're taking our templates and processes that we built during that foundation phase, and we're rolling them out across our full catalog. Here's the key. Don't start from scratch. Make use of the work that you've already done at that foundation level. Use those meta fields that you created. Use the attribute structure that you've already defined, and you just replicate it. Now is the time more of data entry and content strategy. Automate it where you can. I'm a big fan of automation. Use scripts or apps to help speed up the process. you've got 500 products, you don't want to manually fill in by attributes for all 500, right? Use tools to help, and that will help you really, really expand here. This is also where you activate those advanced features. If you're on Shopify, activate Google's Business Agent. Now that you have a rich base of content, clean data, conversational attributes, and complete information, the Business Agent has something to work with. So it's now that we can start to bring in that second way of AI agents interacting with our shop. Your Business Agent only now is able to provide expert level answers to customer questions. By the end of this phase, the 60-day expansion phase, the entire catalog should be agent ready. Don't seek perfection here, and remember that over time you can always go back and add attributes. That number 8 is a great starting point, but perfection is something that we reach over time. And now in days 61 to 90, we're really honing in on that differentiation. This is where we pull away from the competition and where we build a deep competitive moat. At this point, your competitors, they're still invisible. They haven't optimized for agents yet, but you are not just visible, you're starting to dominate. That's all as a result of this course. Don't forget me when you're famous. Now, you'll add the advanced layers in here, in this last point, and this is where you're adding in loyalty program data, things that anything else that you might have, right? Member-only pricing, anything that's hidden behind your, anything that's hidden that is not available to agents in those traditional attributes that we're going to be adding. We might add advanced conversational attribute layers, more than just use cases and emotional appeal. We might add sustainability ratings, anything else that you might think is important for your product. Really, you're not providing data anymore here, you're adding in the context. And then finally, we're monitoring and adjusting. We're wanting to be tracking that agent visibility over time, especially over these first 90 days. This is where we're starting to see that we're tracking our ROI, we're creating our own dashboard, and we're learning about the metrics as they evolve. That's one of the things that's so exciting about this new way of understanding search engine optimization and understanding agentic e-commerce strategy. It's evolving, it's changing. What we might have in day 30 might not be the same that we're looking at in day 90, day 120. So we're learning, we're changing, we're monitoring, and we're adjusting as this technology improves and advances. Now that you're a member of this course, you will get those weekly updates. Anything that's relevant to you, we will be sharing with you so that you are at the forefront of these changes. It's really, really important. Okay, so we've got our foundation, our expansion, and then we're focusing in on differentiation. The sooner that we can get that foundation and expansion done, the sooner that we can get those initial things that that UCP is looking for, the sooner we can move on to differentiating and adding in that context. So that's where we really win. That's where we really cement our authority and really make a difference in the search engine results. All right, so that's wrapping up our lesson 14. And our final lesson, we're going to talk a little bit about why you need to act now and why those early movers, just like you are right now, why you are ready to win. So congratulations, you are now a UCP expert, or you're an expert. You're probably one of the only people at the moment in the world, only one of the e-commerce business owners that understands UCP and is ready to implement it in your strategy. So congratulations, you've got a huge competitive advantage. We've covered a whole load of ground in this course. We've talked about the shift from human-driven to AI-driven to agent-driven commerce. We've talked about the 5 layers of content, implementation, 30-day sprint, 90-day execution plan. We've done it all. But now, as we wrap up, I really want to leave you with a final thought. And in my opinion, it's kind of the most important thought in all of this. And it's kind of what this is going to look like in the future. It's why early movers win. It's the reason why I'm creating this content so fast after Google has created its UCP announcement. It's why I've spent all night for the last few nights researching this huge major thing, putting this together and moving, because early movers are the winners. When you understand this new technology, and this truly is groundbreaking technology, when you truly understand this, you have an advantage that other people cannot compete with. This isn't just another marketing trend, it's not a TikTok dance or a trending audio or something for you to jump on the bandwagon. This is such a fundamental technological shift that is going to revolutionize the way that your customers interact with your content and your products and your e-commerce site. It's not going to stop. This is the beginning. And in 10 years' time, when you look back on this pre-UCP content will be unrecognizable for the way that people buy and engage with purchasing products in 5-10 years' time. Not even that much time. In just a year's time, we'll look back at this time and we'll think, wow, how much things have changed. This is where things are going, and it's how the entire landscape of e-commerce is changing. In moments like these, the people who act decisively, the people who prioritize that first 30-day sprint, the people who stay up for 2 days creating a course, those are the people who win. So in what way is that the reason? What's the first mover advantage in the agent era? Well, first of all, we're building a data moat. Think about what happens when an AI agent successfully uses your structured data to satisfy a customer query. What happens is that the customer gets exactly what they wanted, they have a good experience, and they buy from you. But then that positive signal feeds back into the system. The agent learns this store is reliable, it's accurate data, the data is trustworthy, and therefore it recommends you more and more. Over time, this turns into a moat, kind of like a ring around you that your competitors find difficult to break. You've got the advantage of time and many of these interactions under your belt or in your moat, and your competitors don't. It's a matter of time, but over time, your advantage gets stronger and they struggle to keep up. That's your data moat. Similarly, you gain a visibility monopoly. So for the next 6 to 12 months, most of your competitors are going to be invisible to AI agents because they haven't optimized for agents yet. They might not even know that they have to. They might not know that courses like this exist. They might not know what UCP is. All of these things are your advantage. Their content is still unstructured marketing copy. It's written for humans, not for machines. But you're on this course right now. You're learning this strategy and you're going to act on it. You've already got a plan for the next 30, 60, 90 days. You're ready to go. You may already have been doing this work as you've been working through this course. You've got an advantage. And being one of the first in your niche, you'll effectively own 100% of the agent-driven recommendations, which is huge. This won't last forever, this visibility monopoly, but it's so great for you right now. You've got 6 to 12 months of competitive advantage to take advantage of, and that's huge. And then finally, you're going to create a trust loop. When an agent recommends you and the customer has a good experience, that positive signal feeds back into the system. And all the while, you're creating and fostering that trust and authority that's really, really helpful for LLMs and AI agents to trust you as a reputable source of information. This is a virtuous cycle. And once you get it spinning, it's going to be hard to stop. The only thing that would stop it is if your data was not accurate and you haven't implemented the content strategies in this course. That would be dramatic, that would be difficult. But you're not going to do that, so you're going to get advantage of this trust loop. This is such a rare opportunity for you. And it could be the thing that makes or breaks your business. This is the moment where you can leapfrog your competitors, not by outspending them, but by outthinking them. And that's a rare thing indeed. Your competitors are still, they're playing the old game. They're optimizing for Google's algorithm and they're trying to win that click. Maybe they're even paying for that click. But you are playing the new game and you're optimizing for agents with structured data and you're writing for machines. So congratulations, because that difference is going to compound over time. The only thing left in your to-do list now really is your execution. The only thing left really is action. So I'm going to leave you here with that final word. You have the tools now to be able to go and execute this plan. Go and do it. I've also linked the slides from this presentation in this lesson here as well, so that you can download them and share them with your team. Thank you so much for taking this course. I'm so excited to see what you can build. Please feel free to send me a message, share with me your information, your wins from this. I would love to hear it. And I wish you the very, very best of luck. Now go out there and make it happen.